Just focusing on his game alone, Di Maria deserves a lot more praise. He's massively underrated, but when you get to know his life, all the strange events, all the things he had to go through, man, he's so special. He grew up extremely poor, to the point the sheer fact that he managed to grow up healthy is astonishing. His family was so loving it could melt your heart, sacrificing everything for his sake. He nearly lost his life as a young boy. At one point he was sold to another club in exchange for 26 balls. Life hit him repeatedly with unexpected tragedies that nearly led him to quit several times, and in the end, he still persevered, rising through the ranks at blazing speeds, partnering up with both Ronaldo and Messi for the greatest moments of their careers and bringing glory back to Argentina. Di Maria is one of a kind, and you gotta listen to his story. Let's go. Something not many know is that both Di Maria's father and his grandfather were actually football players as well. His father played for River Plate, but a knee injury ended his career, and even more tragically, his grandpa was supposed to have been the most talented in the family, lost his legs in a train accident. For all they thought, the family was cursed. Regardless, Di Maria's father had focused on football all his life, and with no plan B, he ended up working for the coal mines because it was the one job nobody wanted. By the time he married and had his 3 children, he was still stuck there, packing coal, and the worst wasn't even the job anymore, it was the fact that by himself he couldn't work hard enough to provide for the family, so the kids had to join in, and kids obviously shouldn't be working with coal. Inhaling its dust will literally make your lungs black, killing you from the inside one breath at a time. It was tragic. Di Maria once even said that the coal was so toxic that eventually even their white walls had turned pitch black, just from carrying the bags through the house. Even more heartbreaking is that they only struggled so much because they were stuck paying for 2 houses at the same time. His father had signed himself as a guarantor for one of his friends, and one day he just scammed him and the banks came after the family. Regardless, he tried his hardest to make sure the kids didn't notice how bad things were. He would turn it all into a game, seeing who could carry the most bags. That way, they weren't the poorest kids in town, scavenging every penny in order to not lose their home. They were the heroes of their own imaginary worlds. However, Di Maria was a really tough kid to deal with. It would never stop. If his mom took her eyes off him for a second, disaster would strike, and then it almost did for good. You see, his mom ran a shop from their house selling soap and bleach, meaning they had to keep the front gate open, and one day, reckless young Di Maria ran right into the street, and if it wasn't for his mom pulling him away from an incoming car, that would have been it. That day scarred her so much she decided she would rather close her shop just so they could keep the gate closed, and that they had to go see a doctor. Surely there had to be some way to calm him down, and indeed there was. The doctor would tell them Di Maria was hyperactive, that the only way to calm him down was to give him a place where he could blow off his steam, and the only place he knew was the football pitch. Once at his local youth club, Di Maria's life changed. He had found his calling. He was obsessed. So much so that every 2 months his football boots would just fall apart, even after layers and layers of shoemaker's glue. In his first season at Torito, he absolutely killed it, 64 goals right there. Before that season even came to an end, he was already being called to be interviewed in the radio, but he was so shy, he only nodded and said yes. It wasn't exactly an exciting interview, but I guess it was exciting enough for Rosario Central, who would come knocking at his door. It was actually a funny situation. His dad was a fan of Newell's Old Boys, and his mom was a fan of Rosario, so it was tough. The dad kept trying to argue his way out of seeing his son in his rival club's jersey, but it didn't matter. His mom was over the moon, and even when he argued that they didn't have a car and that the stadium was 8 miles away, the mom insisted she would take him on her bike all the way there every training session. And she really did that. That's true love. And so it was settled. Di Maria would join his new club for a sum of, well, €0. The only transaction would have been 26 balls, which according to Google would have been like €600, but supposedly Rosario ended up stiffing Torito and never even delivering them. What Di Maria didn't expect was that his time at Rosario would be more like a nightmare than a dream. Di Maria was 15 but still very small for his age, and the coach only liked the bigger, stronger kids, and one day, just because Di Maria didn't jump for a header, thinking he had no chance, he gathered everyone and humiliated them in front of them, saying to Di Maria, "You're a wuss, you're a disgrace, just a loser who's never gonna accomplish nothing in his life." Di Maria began sobbing in front of his teammates and just ran away immediately, only stopping once he had locked himself in his room, still crying his eyes out. His mom saw something was wrong, but he was so afraid that she would confront the coach, he just told her he had gotten into a fight, so she called the mom of one of his friends, and the next day, when he insisted he wanted to quit football forever, she told him, "No, you're going back today and you're gonna show him just how wrong he is." And then something magic happened. The other kids didn't want to make fun of him. Instead, they just let him win every other. They were protecting him from the coach. It was a beautiful moment for Di Maria, being shown that football was more than just competition. At 16, he faced another big trial. It didn't seem like a shot at the first team was getting any closer, and so to their great sadness, his parents told him he would get one more year to try and make it, or he would have to quit to work with his father full-time. Thankfully, that ultimatum came in January, and by December, in the very last month, he got called up. From there on out, it was absolute insanity. His career skyrocketed like very few, but first, I gotta tell you about one of the most absurd stories I've ever heard. So it was Di Maria's second ever official match for Rosario when they were playing in Colombia. The thing is, there was no public airport in Rosario, so what they did every time they had to travel somewhere was they went to a small airway that was close by and they just traveled in whatever plane they could find. That day, the only plane there was a military cargo plane. They all looked at it confused, and some army guy came, opened the ramp and told them to pick up some ear mufflers and climb in. The second they did, they closed the ramp, everything went dark, and the plane began taking off. For 8 hours they traveled in the dark, in complete silence, and with only a few mattresses to lie on, sliding from side to side every time the plane took a turn. One of the military guys even messed with them, telling them not to touch the red button or the latch would open. The thing is, well, it was dark, so they couldn't see it, and they became completely paranoid. And by the way, to top it all off, they would actually also go on to lose the match. Regardless, in his second season, he slowly earned a spot in the starting 11 and began impressing, but in reality, the moment that would take him to the next level would be the Under-20 World Cup in July. Di Maria didn't even get to play the full 90 once, or even the final. He actually injured himself by colliding with a Chilean youngster. Arturo Vidal, I think was his name. However, with 3 goals in 3 starts as Argentina became world champions, his name stuck with many of those who watched, and it led Benfica to fork out $8.3 million for his signing, hoping that the youngster would be a long-term replacement for their star Simão Sabrosa. But then in his first season, his numbers weren't exactly the most mind-blowing, but his performance at the Olympic Games was more than enough to convince everyone of his talent. Alongside Messi and Kun Agüero, it was Di Maria who actually saved Argentina with 2 incredibly clutch performances, first scoring in extra time to save them from elimination against the Netherlands, and then scoring the only goal in the final against Nigeria to earn that precious gold medal. And after one more season adapting to Europe, he finally did it. He hit top form with 10 goals and 19 assists in a single season, one every 128 minutes, outshining everyone from Pablo Aimar to Ramírez and Olk, winning the award for the league's player of the season and top assist provider, eventually joining Argentina for the World Cup and earning himself the greatest of compliments, with Maradona himself picking Di Maria ahead of even the likes of Messi. As the boy, he expected to be the next Argentinian superstar, and claiming Benfica should ask for $200 million for his transfer. Not exactly realistic, but you know Maradona. Alongside praise like this came the spotlight, and Real Madrid didn't hesitate, signing him on a deal that could be valued up to 36 million euros, and that would be worth every penny. Right on that first season, Di Maria scored against Lyon and Tottenham as Real made it past the round of 16 of the Champions League for the first time in 7 years, and assisted the only goal in the Copa del Rey final to stop Barcelona from taking the treble. That added to 9 goals and a mind-blowing 26 assists, totaling up to 1 goal contribution every 101 minutes, instantly made him a fan favorite. Regardless, things wouldn't always be easy, with a string of injuries stopping him from playing about 20 matches the next season, which was especially punishing considering he had started it on a level like never before, with 12 assists in 9 matches at one point, which, considering he was struggling to play the full 90 already, added up to an assist every 48 minutes. You really never see those kinds of numbers. It took nearly a full season for him to fully recover from his injuries, though to be fair, even then his numbers were far above average. But then, in 2013-2014, history was made. With the arrival of Bale, Di Maria was actually moved back to midfield, but surprisingly, that only led to even more outlandish numbers, totaling 25 assists in a single year, as well as 11 goals, topping the assist charts and being essential in their Champions League run, especially in the group stage, being involved in 8 goals across its 6 matches. As well as being the man of the match in the final, with Bale scoring the comeback goal from the rebound of Di Maria's shot that led Real Madrid to win La Décima. But then it all turned sour. Di Maria had been key in Argentina's qualification to the World Cup with 9 goal contributions in 12 matches, and rightfully, he was a key player in the tournament as well. But unfortunately, the quarterfinals would bring bad news as Di Maria ruptured the muscle in his thigh, putting him in question for the rest of the tournament. However, when the final came, Di Maria could not control himself and told the therapists, "With the painkillers, I can run. If it tears for good, it tears for good. All I know is that I gotta play that final." But a letter arrived from Real Madrid. They wanted him to skip the final. So he just ripped it into pieces and threw it in the trash. He was convinced they only wanted him to skip the match because they planned to sell him and replace him with James Rodriguez, so they needed him to be fit to do so. But no matter what, the pressure from Real Madrid seemed to have gotten to the coaching staff, as though Di Maria had been reduced to tears begging his coach for a chance. He was never called up to play, even as Argentina went on to lose the match. And eventually he would say, "All people see is the result, 1-0. They don't see the black walls in my childhood home. They don't see my mom paddling all the way to every training session. Even when we win, they see me holding my daughter and smiling with a Champions League trophy, but I'm not smiling because we won. I'm smiling because just 2 months earlier, my daughter was born premature, with tubes and wires hooked up to her. I'm smiling because I got to hold her in my arms." Following all of this, maybe angry at Real Madrid for all that happened, he was the one to end them the transfer request, and soon he would join Manchester United for up to 90 million euros, the most expensive player in the history of English football. However, with the famously cursed number 7 shirt on his back, it's no wonder that he ended up going through the toughest season of his career. At first, with 9 goal contributions in 10 matches, things seemed to be looking good, but after an hamstring injury, his numbers dropped, and after a single season, he was already seen as a major flop. Surely now, looking back, it is obvious to many that this wasn't a fall from grace. In fact, it looked more like Louis van Gaal had pushed him off a cliff. I mean, Di Maria at striker? Surely not. An impressive Copa América over summer with 3 assists and 2 goals confirmed that indeed Di Maria's time at the spotlight was not over, and even though Argentina would surprisingly lose the final match to Chile, his performances would not only be enough to guarantee him a move to PSG, but also to ensure that he was transferred for a record fee, the second highest in the league's history, only marginally outdone by Edinson Cavani, clearly not too bad for a flop. In France, he enjoyed some more quiet times. Domestically, they reigned supreme. Just picture that right on that first year, they took all 4 domestic trophies, with Di Maria getting a goal contribution every 88 minutes. However, with Argentina, things only seemed to get wilder. Right there, he joined them for another Copa América, and it was like a carbon copy of the one just a year before. Di Maria played 3 matches, got 2 assists and 1 goal, and in the end, they lost to Chile in the final on penalties once again. It was heartbreaking. This, followed by a second place finish in the league, could seem like a warning that some dark times were to come, but instead, PSG splashed 400 million on Mbappe and Neymar, and just like that, once again they took all 4 domestic trophies. But domestic trophies weren't enough anymore. They had broken transfer records countless times. They were so superior that league matches looked more like charity work. If they were going to prove themselves, they had to win the Champions League. And in 2020, Di Maria, Neymar and Mbappe all hit top form and combined for an incredible display. Between the 3, they totaled 28 goal involvements in the 11 matches that made up that year's UCL season. They completely ran over everyone, from Real Madrid to Dortmund and Leipzig. They were a formidable trio who got along impressively well, in my opinion, considering the egos that were at play. However, the final wasn't what they expected, and with a 1-goal defeat to Bayern, they came just short. This was the story of Di Maria's career. He lost the World Cup final, the UCL final and the Copa America final twice, which hurt even even more, considering how much his people meant to him. It got so bad he literally had to go under psychological care, trying to recover from the trauma these defeats had put him under. He felt caged in, hopeless, doomed to forever be just shy of achieving his greatest dream, and with his form dropping the next season, it seemed he had failed for good this time around, but then one final chapter allowed him to finally let out a sigh of relief. In 2021, in what might have been his final Copa América, he experienced a more quiet tournament, only getting one assist, but regardless, Argentina would make the final, approaching the day as the underdogs, tasked only with defeating their greatest rivals, Brazil. And after a completely understated performance by Lionel Messi, it was Di Maria who with a strike of genius took advantage of a defensive mistake and shipped the ball over Ederson to get the goal that would finally bring glory back to Argentina after 28 years. It was an overwhelming moment, one that was truly deserved and made up for every bit of suffering he had gone through. Di Maria was a hero. Ever since that moment, it seems like he has finally allowed himself to calm down, enjoying the last year of his contract at PSG, playing with Messi once more, and now possibly joining Juventus at 34 years of age.